Okay, so I'll do spacing for you.
Okay, so I think the webcam should be set up as well, so you should be able to see the. I'll assume you can. So you guys chose to come here so you can learn about how to choose the right drive system. So I think this is probably the most important baseline workshop that we're going to be doing this year, because your drive system is basically your key to success. It's how you move around, and without moving around, you probably won't win the game. So I think with that, oh, it's not on there. That's laziness. Yeah.
Okay.
So first of all, thank you to the University of Victoria for hosting this workshop series. It's helpful to have a room to work in, especially when it's raining.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's start. So drivetrain, or drive system selection, as I called it here. So here's a quick overview of all the purposes of the drive system. So in essence, it should be able to move around the field, push or pull important game items. In this case, they're going to be the blocks here. They will probably have to move around in objects and obstacles, climb ramps, general movement things. They also should be very durable and reliable. I've learned that lesson the hard way. I'm sure we all have actually at some point. Yeah. And then, of course, your speed, agility, and reliability in total are critical to the success of your robot. And so this is the most important system in your entire robot. And of course, you'll need to move to score your points. So there are three main types of wheels. There are what we call the traction wheels, which are the standard wheels, come in every kit. You've probably seen them at some point or another. There's also the Omni wheels. These come in these also come in some kits. And so there are rollers, as you can see here, that are perpendicular to the rotation of the wheel. So that allows it to move it both forward and sideways. So we have examples of each one being handed out here. And often with Omni wheels, you have two bunched together just to help out with the rolling. And then finally, we have Mecanum wheels. And so these have rollers that are attached at 45-degree angles. And it also allows for omnidirectional motion, much like the Omni wheels. The difference is that these are... What are the main differences here, actually?
Well, it means that you can have all four of them facing the same direction, so you can actually get more traction to be able to push something. Whereas with an Omni wheel robot, you generally lose a lot of traction. Also, with the 45-degree angles, you can strafe, which it's a little bit smoother and has a little bit more power than an Omni wheel robot, generally.
Last time one thing.
Oh, yeah.
Is it when for the live stream, it's actually recorded so you can see it in the future?
Yeah, I'm recording it right now as well. So, there we go. So, first of all, we have the tank drive. So, these are probably the first robots you'll ever make. I know I made my first robot as a tank drive. We had a long argument about it. So, basically, key features. Left and right wheels, they're both driven independently, and that allows it to turn. There could be 4, 6, 8, lots of wheels on it. Mostly 4, sometimes 6, with 2 to 4 motors driving each side. It can use either those traction wheels or the Omni wheels. Wouldn't recommend Omni wheels if you're going with a pure tank drive though, because pushing force. Yeah.
There is one design where if you have 6 wheels, you put 4 Omnis on the outsides and 2 tractions in the middle. And that allows you to turn on the spot. That's just a design which you lose some pushing power, but it gives you more maneuverability on the field.
Let's see, they're very cheap and simple to design, build, drive, and program, so they're perfect for rookie teams. They have a higher speed than some of the other ones here, and a good pushing force, as the traction wheels are pretty much dedicated to having traction and being a pretty standard wheel. So yeah, super fast, easy to build. Question? Yes?
Wait, what was he saying about like the Omni wheels?
You could replace these with Omni wheels and have this one here. So then if you roll the side one forward and the other one backwards, it would be able to turn on a dime. Right. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah. One thing more I want to mention about the tank drive is that it's one of the popular designs that you see at the World Championships. Because it's so simple and robust, a lot of the top teams use it because it doesn't break, and it means that it will always work for you.
They never break. Yeah.
So with that, how often is mechanical drivetrain?
Often.
It depends on how you build it.
Yeah.
Usually you have to put a lot more design and effort into making sure that your chain and mechanism type robots do not break.
And as an example, we have ourselves a tank drive robot right there. Crazy. And as you can see here, we did, my team that I'm an alumni from, we've also pulled this maneuver before where you have a Omni wheel at the front and then your wheels at the back. You can also reverse it, but essentially what that allows is if you're driving the vehicle, it can rotate like that without having the front be an issue there. So we did this one before. What you have to watch out for is the back swings. So you might not have enough room to turn that way. And in that case, other drive systems are probably better for you if you're worried about turning on a dime.
Yeah. The other thing with that particular drive system is you only have 2 motors powering your drive system. So if you come up against a row with 4 motors or even 6 motors on their drivetrain, they will be able to push you around the field as much as they want.
I've also experienced that one.
Wait,
Yeah.
I remember playing one year where there was a team that did 8 wheels of the regular traction wheels with 8 DC motors on them. No one can move them, and they can move anything.
It's a tank. It's quite literally a tank drive.
Yes.
why?
Because there was a strategy that year where a defensive game where if you could defend a certain part of the field, you could pretty much stop other teams from scoring. And so they designed the robot entirely to be a defensive robot and let their partner score. And they would just block the other 2 teams from scoring.
So this robot's strong enough to not only block 1 team, but 2 teams.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that idea.
Okay. Next up, we have a black square. I think we know what a mechanism drive looks like. If
Let me
not,
just see if
it's
it'll-
basically, yeah, if you want, you can. Did you reload it? Still didn't work? Oh, nope, that's holonomic.
It's not loading that picture. for
Okay,
whatever
it's
reason.
okay. We basically, same setup as your classic tank drive here, just instead of having 2 unpowered wheels, all of them are powered by motor, and we have the mechanism wheels instead of traction and Omni wheels. And so basically, similar layout, pretty much a very similar design process. In fact, I think we have a mechanism drive somewhere here, but basically you have to use 4 mechanism wheels. You can't do 2 mechanism wheels, 2 Omni, and 2 mechanism wheels, 2 traction wheels. You can't mix and match. You have to use 4 mechanism wheels. They're very robust. They're
Every system can fail if it's not maintained or
Yeah.
has maintenance done on it.
So basically, these are a very similar design and building process to tank drives. Just in this case, you have to worry about having motors on each axle.
Well,
They're very agile though. They're able to strafe.
How much
which
more
means
expensive are the Mecanum wheels? compared to-
Mecanum wheels a set 145 last I checked.
Yeah, try 200 by the time they're delivered in Canada.
Yeah.
140 is the US price.
Yes.
well, one thing though is since we live so close to the US, you can just like
You can
have
ship it to Seattle and have a
Yeah.
friend ship it over.
or just like order to Seattle and just go to your friend's house.
Yeah, that too.
No import fees.
I mean, the Clipper also costs money. So, next up, would you like to talk about this one, Duncan?
Sure. I mean, this is kind of your standard omni-wheel holonomic drive. It's basically one of the most maneuverable robots you can build. It allows you to move in any direction as well as spin and strafe while moving. It's very useful for being able to use multiple sides of your robot. So if you were to use one of the kind of basic tank robots, kind of like this one, you can really only use the front and back to put mechanisms on, as you can only drive up to a side with the front and back. Whereas with the Omni wheel, you can spin and you can have mechanisms on all 4 sides, so it allows you to use more of your robot space to interact with different objects. Seeing as we only have 1 object that you really need to interact with this year, I'm not sure how much you will actually need that. You can probably get by without needing the maneuverability that an Omni allows you to do. They're very useful for, as I said, moving around and being able to get out of the way or around obstacles, but they do not have, one thing they lack is traction or pushing power. So if you try and shove something or shove another robot, generally you won't be able to because your traction comes from rollers that are moving sideways, and so you have very little in the way of traction to be able to actually push another object.
Another thing that is probably worth saying, this is very unorthodox, but you can also have holonomic drives with 3, 6, maybe even 5, as long as they're at an equal angle to 360, so like 5 divided by 360. If they're at that angle, it's hard to build in these cases because you only have a very limited angle set for these.
Yeah.
But if the world depended on you having a 3-wheel system, you can set one
I
up
have
with
built
them.
one of those once just because I was curious.
Just curious, yeah. They don't work as well, but
You can get them to work, but yes, it is more challenging and they aren't quite as stable. I would say that if you're going to build an Omni robot, use 4 wheels. It's simple, and there's other teams have also built 4-wheeled robots, so they can help you with challenges that you've had. Whereas if you try and build like a 5-wheeled Omni robot, there are very, very few teams who have actually built that.
saw one photo of a
Yeah.
3-wheeled one, and that was about it. So.
The other thing with the Omni-wheel robots is that they are a fair bit more complicated to program than some of the other systems because you are trying to program a robot to be able to move in any direction with your joystick as well as being able to spin at the same time. And so it takes a little more effort and a little more time to be able to actually put together a proper teleop program or autonomous program to be able to move. You can always do a kind of simplified program where you just run it on 2 wheels, and you just kind of run this way, and then you just use the other 2 wheels to go sideways, and then you have a spin option. That would be a very simple form of the programming, but you can get far more advanced if you want to in the programming and have it being able to kind of diagonally strafe while spinning to realign to a different object. Yeah.
Perfect.
Well,
Okay.
on the topic of like semi-mechanical drive, you said really like it was really easy to break with a bad design. So what do you classify as a bad design for it to break?
Okay, so
Not using lock nuts.
not using lock nuts. Also, a design kind of like this, where you just have your wheels kind of sitting on the outside, could be problematic. Generally, if you're going to use Mecanum or Omni wheels, you're going to want, well, more so with Mecanum wheels, but even with Omnis, you're going to want to have something on the outside with the axle going all the way through 2 pieces of metal to have the wheels stable, because if they're like this, they will start to splay out as the season goes on and you put more weight on your robot, and that can cause a lot of issues, as well as that can cause the set screws on your motor clamps or motor hubs to come loose, and then the wheels will fall off. So generally you want to have some sort of outer rail or outer system to keep the wheels to staying on as part of your drive system.
Also, you will notice this if we end up driving the Mecanum drive. You have to have every wheel mounted at this. You have to have them exactly the. I don't know how to explain it.
It's kind of like think about
They
it.
have to
be
form a square
a square yeah.
or a rectangle. If it forms a perfect rectangle, the programming is still a little bit harder to do, but it is doable. But works a lot easier if it is a perfect square.
And it's the wheels have to be the same distance from the. How do you explain this?
Same distance from the center of the robot?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you'll get them to. It'll start jittering, and it's not a fun time.
Yeah, the other thing for the Mecanum robots is that if you're going to try and, you can drive sideways with them, but you have to have the front and back wheels on the diagonal spinning in opposite directions. And then because of the 45-degree angle on the rollers, they strafe sideways.
And so it might be pretty helpful this year with having to pick and precisely place a block somewhere. So
It is both of them
taking a look at least.
are possible designs. I would certainly probably pick a Mecanum over an Omni just for being able to have more traction, because these rollers are generally bigger and do give you more traction than an Omni wheel would.
Okay, and then the slide drive. That's also not loading. That's awesome. This kind of needs a photo to make sense here. Let's see if this works. Oh my gosh.
The idea behind the slide drive system is that it's a tank drive that has 4 Omni wheels. So it's got 4 Omni wheels here, and then it has 1 or 2 Omni wheels on a 45 in the middle of the robot that allows it to drive sideways on the rollers of the Omni. So you mainly power it with your regular tank drive, but then you use an extra motor to be able to have a lateral movement and to be able to drive sideways.
So I don't know if you can tell there, but there's a photo.
You can see there's an Omni wheel here that would allow it to push sideways. And then when you're driving forwards, it is rolling on its rollers sideways.
So yeah.
It uses an extra motor and is slightly more complicated. Again, it lacks a lot of pushing force because you're sliding on rollers the entire time you're moving.
Oh, do you want me to go back?
It's very easy to be pushed around, especially because if someone hits you from the side, you just roll sideways.
Just roll, yeah. So
it does give you more agility and speed on the field, but again, I would probably go with a Mecanum or an Omni over a slide drive.
But if you're really pressed for time, this is an easy way to convert a traction or
A tank drive
into something that at least has similar capabilities.
Yeah, it allows you the same kind of lateral movement. The other thing that I should mention with these is if you start trying to climb over anything, I'm not sure if there is any.
There's a, yeah, in the
There's
center.
If you are going
neutral
over that
bridge.
center little lip, your wheel, if you're using an Omni and it's not on the perfect side, if this hits whatever it is you're trying to climb over, it will just stop you and you won't be able to move forward. So you will want to consider that if you're actually going over that central lip, because you could end up hitting the side of your wheel and just getting stuck.
Okay. So.
Yeah. This is kind of a swerve or a synchro drive system. Apparently it's also called a crab, but I did not know that.
I've heard
And
someone call it a crab before.
It's called travel, right?
Was it?
There's like multiple different things that this type of drive system is called. They are fairly complicated. I've only built one of these drive systems, and that was a Lego one, but that was weird. Anyway, basically the idea is that you have four wheels that can spin independently of each other. So you create an assembly that allows you to have a motor that drives them forward and a secondary motor that twists the wheels independently. So this allows you to basically drive forward, turn your tires 90 degrees without turning your robot, and then drive sideways.
Think of it as like an electric shopping cart wheel.
Yeah.
You know how they can rotate around on a central axis? Well, this one's just motorized, so it chooses which way it wants to turn, and then it powers it.
Yeah. So this is kind of, it allows, again, for the kind of holonomic movement. The one bonus that this one has is that you are still using these, you would generally use these base traction tires, which means that you would still have four motors or four wheels to push with, so you still have some traction. The main problem with this one is its complexity. It is a really hard system to kind of learn how to deal with and adapt to. It actually works very well in autonomous because you can control it. As a driver, though, it becomes very difficult and you need a lot of time to get your drivers used to, okay, I'm driving forwards, now I need to spin my wheels and drive backwards diagonally. Or
a
something.
really good programmer who can make it in like a... Anyways.
Yes, some really advanced program that allows you to translate the robot's movements into a simple joystick movement. But often, generally with these sorts of systems, it ends up being complicated joystick movements to be able to control them effectively. The other problem with these is that you generally need at least 6 motors to be able to use them effectively. And that means that there's a lot more moving pieces to it. And if there's more moving pieces, it's more likely to break. Because you need to have your wheels on a chain up to your regular motor, and then that whole assembly has to be able to spin, which usually requires either more gears or sprockets or chains. They also can't support as much weight because there's so many moving parts in the drive system. You generally will have a lighter robot.
Basically, if you're a first-year team, don't go near this. It'll be a mess.
So basically it's mechanical drive, but more powerful, but also much more draggable.
It doesn't have the same,
Is that like a unicycle?
That's one.
That's just
assembly,
one
so
part.
there'd be
You'd have
of
like
those.
4 or 3 if you feel crazy, or 5 or 6 or.
Basically, you'd have like a DC motor on a wheel for this assembly, and then you'd have a servo on a gear that would rotate the whole assembly. And you'd have 4 of those. You'd have 4 DC motors and 4 servos controlling. And so then you'd rotate all the wheels at the same time to go in a different direction. Or you could rotate them to 45 and then spin on the spot.
How are they going to have to
So it's not so much heavier.
Hopefully. I don't know.
It's you'd use a lot of servos controlling this.
Okay.
Or you'd have to link them up and have a DC motor on like a bunch of chains controlling the whole system.
So they take a lot of the spot on your retro.
Yes, they take up lots of space in retro. They also, this type of system would also take up a lot of room in your robot because you have to have the room for the extra gears and chains to be able to control it all. So whereas you might be able to put your like control hub and batteries down low in your robot on other drive systems, you need to have that space for the different motors and chains controlling this system.
Okay. I'm going to move the webcam a tiny bit because I was looking at the stream and it looks kind of blurry and hard to see, so hopefully this will make it a little better.
Do you want some?
So first, we're going to do a quick overview because some of the live stream viewers haven't been able to.
1 minute to show each robot so that when you get to the table, they know what the types are.
Okay, so are we going back over that or?
No, just literally in 1 minute, hold up
Just
each robot.
1 minute, and then we'll hold up each robot and show off what makes them special. So, essentially, tank drive, 4 traction wheels. Each one can be driven if you want, but in reality, 2 are driven on each side, and it's pretty easy to build, fast, simple, cheap, and easy to program. Good for beginners. Mechanism drives. There's no picture for it, but hopefully here, Duncan can show you it. There you go. So basically, Mecan wheels, they have a 45-degree incline on the rollers, and essentially what makes it able to strafe side to side. Less power with the pushing, but you know, easy. It's about the same as a tank drive, just with each one being powered separately, and they're pretty expensive. Holonomic drive. Boom. Basically, 4 Omni wheels attached at 45-degree angles, allows it to strafe sideways, forwards, rotate pretty quickly. Each one has to be separately driven, but overall, good option, less pushing power. And then slide drive.
Most of them were on by the time you guys did slide and swerve.
Okay, we'll just go past these then. So, we're back. Weighted objectives. Would you like to pass?
Yeah.
Do you want me to pass them out? You can
Sure.
explain a little.
Okay, so kind of.
So we'll do one with each team for now, and then once we see how it, we'll definitely have one for
Let them do a couple slides before you.
before.
So
They're going to spend more time on that instead.
basically, we're going to be. One of the things for this is kind of a way to give you an overview of how to kind of pick your drive system based on what you think it should be doing for this season. So you kind of give the robot different attributes that it needs to have. So how strong is it, or how good is it at pushing? How fast is it? How maneuverable is it? How likely is it to break? How strong is it? How easy is it to program? Those sorts of kind of like different attributes. And then you can kind of score them, and then based on how good of a score each kind of drive system gets, you can kind of pick which one you think would be a good starting point, or which, or a couple of ones that are ones you want to look into more to try and decide what is you want to actually pick for your drive system. So yeah, they kind of depend on your own interpretation of the game and how you want to play the game. Because different game styles and play styles will have different drive system requirements. It also could also depend a bit on your team resources. If your team can't buy Mechanism wheels, it's kind of hard to make a Mechanism robot. It's things like that. So yeah, this is kind of just an overview of these. This is kind of like how maneuverable is it, how strong or how good is it at pushing, how good is it at climbing over different obstacles? Is that even important in this game? How many motors does it use in the drive system? How easy is it to program? How easy is it to design? Because like if you're building like a synchro drive, you need to probably like CAD the whole system first if you want it to actually work properly, or you have to go through a lot of testing and trial and error to actually get the design working. Then you can kind of use, kind of total up the different weights and stuff, and how well each of them score to get. Then we kind of put in a base numbers of how good we think some of the basic drive systems are at different things. So you can kind of see certain robots are good at maneuvering, other ones are good at being easy to program. Generally, if it has a lower score, it's worse at a different ability, and then if it's got a higher score, it's better at that. And we were just kind of using a 1 to 5 arbitrary scale to decide that.
Christine has also made a interactive spreadsheet that can actually calculate these things for you, depending on how much you want to. I have to reset the scaling here. There we go. Boom. So, let me go back here. Sorry, should we just wait for the end for that? Maybe. Yeah,
It's kind of fun.
kind of fun. Okay, we'll go over it. So, there we are. So,
Wait a
Right
minute, why
here.
did you say Microsoft Edge?
why are we using Edge? I don't know. It's whatever's on this laptop. Not my laptop. Okay. So, you know. So basically, you can assign a weighting to each one depending on how important it is to you.
So, just as a consensus, how important do you think maneuverability is going to be to your robot in this year's game?
Depends on how you design your robot. Like, is your arm movable, like left and right, or is it only up and down?
Well, we're not kind of like trying on that. We're going to just kind of say, we're just kind of like going for a base system of, does your drive system need to be very maneuverable for this game? No?
I'm guessing it needs to be.
I mean, because you're going diagonally across the field and going under things, and you're moving around other robots that are also moving on the field.
Oh, the basic tank job, you can do all of that.
It's also a pretty crowded field because if you can imagine, there's 6 of these, well, 12 of those actually, lining on one side of the field, and then we have robots.
4 robots moving back.
It's going to be busy, yeah. So it could be worth it to be agile. Maybe if you're planning on just being a giant brick that like moves around and just stops everyone from moving, it's an option.
So consensus of like 1 to 5, how important do you think agility or like maneuverability is to this year's game? Let's hear some numbers.
4.
4?
Yeah, 4.
4.
4 seems to be consensus, so let's put 4 in.
Okay.
How important do you think being able to push other robots and other objects in this year's game? Being able to push through things and kind of have a lot of traction.
1.
3. 6. Wait, what?
It's out of 5, Sean.
I know.
Okay.
Oh.
So we've 1, 3. So kind of like, let's say 2 as an average. Being able to climb over other objects for this year's game. How important is that?
-5.
0.
There.
Not important. There isn't anything to climb over.
So what
How-
does motors actually mean?
Well, that's kind of like how many motors does it use? So if your system uses like 6 motors, that means you only have 2 for being able to make mechanisms. So how many motors do you think you're going
So
to
if
need?
you need a few motors, it's a 5. If you need lots of motors, it's a 1.
Kind of like that, yeah.
We need, like, only for the drive phase, we only need 4 motors.
Well, this is also kind of being weighted on how many
It
motors do
depends
you
on
think
how
you're going
many
to need.
motors you're going to want to program in the end. So like arbitrary number between 1 and 5 is like how many you think. So 1 is like you're going to use a lot, as in, yeah, I think that's what ends up being.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to use all 8 of your DC motors in your drivetrain, which you could do,
Yeah,
that would
but
mean
I
that you'd
think-
have to use all of your mechanisms on servos.
We
Which
tried that, it didn't work. But you know, if you design it properly, I'm sure it probably would.
it can work, but it is often very difficult. So I would say you probably want at least 2 motors held back for your mechanisms, because you're going to need to be able to lift something up, and you probably want something else to grab. Yeah.
So I'd say if you wanted to be conservative with your estimate, I'd probably go with like 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, a solid amount. Programming.
So this is kind of an arbitrary thing that will change a lot team to team. How important is being easy to program to your team? So if you're like a rookie team who doesn't have a lot of experience programming, you may want an easier to program robot than some of the more complicated drive systems.
So what do you guys think? For you guys, you're a little experienced, but we also have some newer teams, so we'll go with like a solid.
You don't need programmer.
What sort of like, between like 1 and 5, how important do you think
Like
having
1
an easy?
being hard or 5 being hard?
1 is hard, 5 is easy.
For just the driving?
Yeah, just for the driving.
Oh, maybe like a. Oh, I guess we're using that notes, right?
We use mechanic. We
Okay,
did
well,
that the other day.
well, they're gonna be hard, but if I was.
But if you had any choice, like 1 to
Oh,
5, what would you do?
like
Okay, we're just going with
solid
2.
3.
3?
Alright.
3.
I would
So
do 3, like it's usually nice to have at least some. So this one is kind of like design would be, being easy to design is kind of what this one is about. So do you think you're going to need to actually like fully CAD out your drive system for it to even work? Or do you think you can just like basically come up with in your head or just kind of like sketch it on a napkin and have it work? Because the drive system is easier to use.
Didn't you guys literally sketch on that?
That was after the Alberta Championships, yeah. We did that a couple years. It can work.
We drew all of ours on paper and then just try to put it into reality. That worked
Yeah.
most of the time. CAD's a better option. And in fact, we're doing a workshop on CAD. That's coming up next, don't worry.
Isn't that like a week today?
Yeah, it is. Thank you for mentioning that, Duncan. Great plug.
There's a slide at the end.
Yeah, there is a slide, so we'll try to keep our plugging to the end there. So, design. How important is the design for you guys? 5's very important. 1's I don't really care.
Like 5, it always matters. Like design is important.
Sorry, I meant like, do you want it to be hard? 5 is hard, 1 is not hard. I think that's what the setup is.
No, it's the opposite for
Is it the
that.
opposite? 1's hard and 5's not hard? Yes, that is. It is.
So kind of like a middle ground for design, like a
There's
3,
gotta be some kind of.
Design.
I'd like it
These
to.
guys might be.
2 or 3.
We'll
Okay.
go with the 2.
2.5.
Okay, and so we have tabulated the results. Your best option is a tank drive. That's surprising. And then your second best is a Mecanum. So that's pretty bang on with what we expected.
Or an Omni wheel.
Or an Omni drive, yeah.
Yeah, they're kind of comparable on that, although that would again be kind of change a little bit depending on how much you weighted different
Oh, actually,
things.
yeah, the holonomic one's actually, it's put down as X there. I didn't know X
Yeah.
meant, and then I realized it's a holonomic drive. So,
Could you bump the design one up to 4 and just see the?
yeah, sure.
So do the
4
design up
would
to
be
4.
not difficult.
And you
So
can
tank has a bigger lead. So essentially, if you're a newer team and you want to focus more on the facts like learning to build, learning to program, learning to design, it's probably best to go with the tank. That's how I started. I think that's how basically everyone starts.
Everyone starts on a tank drive, and
Because they're easy and very flexible.
I would also say, like Alec, both you and me have been to Worlds a bunch of times. How often do we see tank drives at Worlds?
I would say 8 out of 10, Mecanum 1.9 out of 10, and everything else 0.1 out of 10. I don't know why I said out of 10 instead of 100.
Okay, that was a weird answer, but like that would be like more than half of the teams at Worlds use tank drives because they are simple and very easy and good to use. They are also very effective. So I would generally start with a tank drive in any situation, and then until you come up with a reason not to use one, such as you are trying to stack blocks very precisely and you want to move sideways. So that could be a reason to build a system with a Mecanum or something that allows you to move sideways to be able to stack. But at the start, at least, I would start with a tank drive and then and then build on that from there.
Also, as a message to live stream viewers, you know you can ask us questions in the live chat, and I'll go and check them. So if you guys have questions, there's 3 of you. I see you there. Don't pretend like you're not there. I see you. If you have questions, literally ask, and we will answer them as quickly as we can. Yeah, that was just my quick PSA to the live stream.
I feel like saying that tank drive's like the best one to use just because it's easy. It's kind of misleading because like in some, not in this year competition, but in some other year competitions, it could be harder depending on the terrain.
Sometimes. But,
Very rarely, though. The tank drive is also one of the best, if you design it and build it properly, is also one of the best robots at climbing over things as well. So the tank drive all around is one of the best drive systems due to being just super robust. You can also change a standard tank drive into something that's a little bit different. We've built designs where we've had 3 wheels or 6 wheels on each, so 3 wheels on each side. We've had the middle wheel raised up by ½ inch, and then we've had chains, so we're using only 4 motors for 6 wheels, but they were all still powered.
That's another thing. You don't have to only power 1 motor on each side. If you use chains or belts, I don't recommend
gears.
belts, but gears, chains, they also work. So you can have 1 motor in the middle, and this actually helps a lot to relieve the strain that it puts on the axles.
Yeah.
Because if you notice,
With these robots, you can see how the wheels
it's directly mounted to these axles, and it's not great for it. I just have to say that.
Anytime this wheel hits something, then like the wall, anything that's trying to drive over, the motor is kind of getting shook around and like bent slightly. So over time, you will actually bend your axles, and you can break the gearboxes in your motors.
We've burnt a motor doing this, and I'm not even kidding. It started smoking in the middle of competition. That was our first year.
Yep.
That was Leonard the robot.
I think I've only smoked 3 motors. Yeah, it happens. You
It
just
happens.
replace it. It works. But
It's
the
not
nice
a bad
thing,
deal.
one of the things that I would recommend about the design where you have like 6 wheels and 4 motors with chain or something, is that if one of the motors stops working, the other 3 will still keep driving. So you will still be able to move around on the match, even if one of you lose one. We actually had one match where we had a 6-wheel row where we lost 2 motors, one on opposite sides, and we could still drive because we had 3 wheels still working.
Right.
That's kind of amazing.
It was pretty amazing. I mean, we were all like, why is this so slow? And they were like, wait a minute, the chain's off, and that one's not moving. Having a robust drive system is whatever you decide to do, having a robust drive system is one of the most important parts, because you will always need to move unless you build the stupidly complex super arm that can reach across the field and do the entire game just while sitting in one spot.
You're not allowed to reach across this year's field. So
No,
you
you have
Oh,
to
yeah,
drive
so then you
across.
can't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can have something that's literally just like it goes in a straight line with a long arm. That would work, but
Yeah.
yeah, again, not the best move.
Wait, why is it not allowed to see?
Because there's specific rules about going underneath the...
You have to go under the bridges in order to interact with the other side.
Yeah.
That's weird.
So, with that being said, overall, do you guys have any questions? And I'm also going to look at the live chat. Wow, look at that, nothing. Ouch.
Maybe it's like
Yes.
nothing.
We're a new team, and we're just wondering where would I find out the criteria? What do we have
Criteria.
to do this year?
So on First's website, so I will go to that right now.
Yeah. So you can look at the game manual part 2, and it will explain how all the scoring works and stuff. And when you just kind of have to, it's kind of based on each team's own desire of how they want to play the game. Again, I will always recommend autonomous because you can score the most points there.
I think game and
It was a gaming season.
Yeah. But it is based on each team's strategy for the year. What types, and that kind of from what you're trying to do, you kind of work backwards from there to decide what drive system, what mechanisms, and where you're kind of going from there.
probably game materials.
Under game materials. I thought game materials was more of like the building structure, but maybe not.
No. That's it. Right at the top.
Oh, is it?
Game manuals.
I didn't see that. There it is.
That's
part
So that's
one.
game
You need
manual
part two.
1 and game manual part 2. So part 1 is more about the game. Part 2 is about the robot, I believe, right?
Part 1 kind of tells you your list of allowed materials, what you can build your robot out of, whereas part 2 is kind of the actual game and the rules around how it's played,
Okay.
penalties and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so this is very helpful to kind of flush out your plan for how you're going to play the game, because it gives you a lot of information, a lot of rules, and
Also, just can you go back to that picture?
yeah, of course.
It's very helpful to print out, if you go down to the bottom picture here.
This one?
Yeah. Printing out a couple of pictures like this for your programmers so they can start designing their autonomous programs, because they can just take a pen and go, robot drives here and then goes here or whatever, and you can kind of map out where the robot's moving in autonomous or endgame based on that. You can kind of design plays for like, what if another robot comes into this space? What will I do then? And you can kind of think about what all the robots will be doing for autonomous, and that's a good way of, that's a good strategy for just like figuring out how and where you're going in autonomous.
Yeah. I know for sure we did that last year, and it really.
Our team has done that for years, where we just print out like 5 or 10 of these maps. We have a couple of people just sketch out different ideas on where things are, where your robot will drive in autonomous, and what it's, and you can make little notes on the side about what it's going to be doing as it's driving around.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm on.
What are you doing?
Just looking up something real quick. So, any other questions? Really? I'm sure you guys have a question.
Yes, why Wikipedia?
Why Wikipedia? Well, I'm going to show you why doing such a, why doing such a plan works so well. And in this case, if we go down here, we might notice a certain name that pops up.
I haven't been here. I haven't seen this.
Yeah, it's on the shoot, where is it? You guys wondering,
Control F. Use Control F.
Control F. Oh yeah, right. No, it's under velocity.
Yeah.
Velocity vortex. Oh, it doesn't exist anymore. Okay, it used to exist. Anyways, it said fix it. And if you don't know,
I was an alumni. I was on Fix It for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. Alec was also part of Fix It for 5 years as well, 6 years, 4.
Alec was part of the year that they won Worlds.
yes. So, just saying, it works. I never had that experience because, you know. But these guys know what they're talking about, and you should probably listen to them with that kind of stuff. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
You guys mentioned like a robot that just had a really long arm and just extended everywhere.
It's kind of a joke, but yes.
That existed?
Yes, there was 1 year where that existed. That was Bring It Up. There was one robot that we knew that they decided to go completely overkill. They could have gone with a tank drive. Instead, they chose a synchro drive, and then they put in a 5 or 6 degree of freedom arm that could reach about 8 feet across the field, 4 feet in each direction. So it would reach around, grab a scoring object, and then go and score it. And it would only have to drive about 6 inches.
No, there's also another one from, I think it was Weather Recovery, Team 4042, I forgot the name.
Yeah.
They had a bot, it's called Extender bot. They had a robot where they use a scissor drive. They usually kind of drive it out, pick it up, go back, and the robot would automatically build the cycle by itself.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
I would say that you probably want to avoid systems like that generally because they are so complicated and they take months to get working. We tried building an arm and we ended up with a 5 or 6 degree of freedom arm and then decided that was way too complicated to program or deal with or control properly. And so we kind of, well, yeah, there was the space issue. And then there was also being able to control it like as a driver.
Yeah, I know, but I about the program.
And then, so we ended up bringing it back to like a 3 degree of freedom arm. So you probably want to go with a simpler, if you're going to build an arm, build a simpler one. And if you're going to build, generally, always go back to the KISS principle, keep it simple.
Omitting that last part, I see.
Well, you go keep it simple silly or keep it simple stupid, I don't know.
Either way.
Simon, if
Yeah.
I send you a link, can you show a video?
Yes.
Okay, and does that robot even work?
Yeah, it worked.
Which,
we went to Worlds
where are
that
you
year, I
sending
think.
the link to my
Was
email?
it successful
Yes.
in any degree?
Okay.
Is there somewhere else?
It was successful. It wasn't the best robot there
That's
by
the
any
one
means,
Doug
but
talked about for
it
bringing
was
up
a
the
decent.
big arm.
William is my efficiency.
Oh, you're showing the Cybernauts
Yes.
robot?
Yeah, we do want to drive the robots, but we'll just show the one video and do the final 2 slides, and then we can let these guys try the robots.
Hey, do you want to see my C program? I can predict the day in the future based off of a date. Yeah, pretty groundbreaking.
What?
Wow.
Wait,
So,
what?
so if you give like a random date, like the 5th of September 2098. It'll tell you it's like a Wednesday.
Yep.
Yeah, I know, groundbreaking stuff. Like,
Do you want to refresh me and see?
Oh, is there any questions on the live
Apparently
stream?
the chat is currently disabled
It
as of
still
6
says
minutes
it?
ago.
It's still.
It showed up.
Oh, shut up.
It showed up before, I see.
Did it go back to being disabled somehow?
So yeah, this is kind of what you could choose to do, but generally
Oh, is this,
it's completely unnecessary.
Is this the arm?
Yes,
Yeah.
this is the arm. Yeah.
Ah, instant trash. Nice.
There we go.
You'll see that robot there.
It is so overkill.
That was
Yeah.
It works though.
So they had a
That's
sig-
cool.
That's the autonomous, wait till they get to teleop.
Yeah.
Wait, is this?
Autonomous was just going slow because.
That was my first year at Worlds was that year, and we ended up. I think we actually ended up playing against them in one match. It went okay, but yeah, it is extremely hard to build and control an arm like that because you have to figure out how to wire a robot that can spin and through a whole bunch of gear trains, and wiring that type of arm is extremely complicated.
And as you can see, once it goes up to higher levels, it gets pretty competitive.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of really cool robots. So I'm assuming.
You can also
most-
see there's another one, the one in black, I think it's 4140 or whatever. Anyway, has a very simple arm that just goes up and down and kind of reaches out. It only has like 2 joints in it, but it's still competing against a team like this and is doing reasonably well. So
And
sometimes having a simple robot that works is sometimes better.
And if you notice, it's running off of an NXT, so that shows you.
How old it was.
Yeah.
This was back when you were actually controlling them with the Lego Mindstorms controllers, the NXTs.
NXTs were awesome. What are you talking about? But yeah.
They built like a full-on crane.
Oh yeah. Oh, this year. Wait, is it this year that you have to raise stuff up?
No, that's the fold over.
Oh, bowled over, yeah.
No, you guys just showed the robot like the one that like scored like 500
Yes,
points.
but the game that goes up 18 feet is fold over.
Yeah. That was a crazy robot. Okay. Well,
You should show
that was a
PGC
fun
actually.
intermission there.
Yes.
Okay. No questions.
We'll
Okay.
finish up the slides.
So here's a picture of the field.
It was in case you guys needed it.
Oh, we probably could have used it.
So the
Okay.
human players will be in the blue.
They will load
red.
the blocks. They won't
Load
actually.
it.
I'm not sure if they're actually standing in the field or if they're just
No, they
placing
stand
stuff.
outside and just
Yeah.
place them inside.
They
Yeah.
place blocks in that taped off area.
It's like
That's kind of fun.
So they're in the smaller taped off outside.
Yeah, they would be
The
here.
red human player is on the blue side,
Yeah.
and the blue human player is on the red side.
Yeah.
because the depots are on opposite side, or I don't know what they're called, but the things.
No, I think they are for depots.
They're called depots? Cool. Okay, and now a second to see some upcoming events in Victoria that I think all of you guys should go see. So, first of all, yeah, except for that one, I was going to say that. So, we have,
Wait, which one?
Well, St. Margaret's is on the live stream, so they might be interested in the last.
yes, so St. Margaret's, this is, I'll stand over here. This one's for you guys. So, we have Symbiosis, which is, well, it says here, hands-on STEM fair. That's tomorrow. And also tomorrow, we have the Startup Slam, which is also a really cool opportunity to go see some companies that are in the tech sector and see what they're doing. So it's a tech showcase. And October 2nd, we have Women in Engineering and Computer Science. If you yourself are not a woman, but you know a woman who likes computer science and engineering, tell them about this because it's really cool. And there's a link there.
So if you're not a woman, you're not allowed to go.
I'm sure you're allowed to go.
Christine?
Maybe not.
Love your trends.
Maybe not.
Maybe not.
Okay.
Okay.
Alec, do you want to talk about?
Oh, sure.
Oh, yeah.
I guess I'm leading. this
Plugging
next
time.
week. So next week we are going to be talking about using CAD for robot assembly. So we'll actually have 2 workshops. The first one will just be using parts of all the kits of parts you already have, and just basically learning how to put them together so that you can model your robot ahead of time. This was our robot a few years ago, and that is very helpful to figure out what parts you need or try things out before you actually spend a lot of time
building it, it can also complement sort of some of the design process. As far as the softwares we will be using, definitely we'll take a look at one's called OnShape, which runs all in browser, so that makes it really nice. You don't have to download and install anything. And then we'll also use Fusion 360.
If you want to use all OnShape, that's fine.
Oh, no, I definitely
Okay.
will show that one too. Yeah, and I might do a brief SolidWorks demo, but we probably won't have time to do all three.
Probably just mention, or at least, yeah.
And we will bring laptops, so you guys will actually be able to try it
Yes,
during the
that
workshop.
will be a very interactive workshop. There won't be very many
And
slides.
if you have your own laptop, you could download the free copy of Fusion.
Oh, yeah,
If they want
okay.
to bring their own.
Yeah, if you want to bring your own, both of those pieces of software are free. So if you want to use your machine, make sure you pre-install it, because for Fusion 360 it will take probably about an hour to actually install. OnShape obviously won't.
Morning 2 on a school Wi-Fi.
Oh, maybe at Ubiquitous.
Yeah, I downloaded it at home and it took me about 20 minutes.
UVic Wi-Fi is slow, so I'd recommend.
I would
Anyways.
allow yourself at least an hour to download it when you are doing it.
So anyway, that will be happening next week. Is it here or is it in, or do we have a confirmed room?
Check the website for the room location.
It will probably be in this building, but might be in a different room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would it be in a
If we
computer
want-
lab or? Don't know.
Yeah, I was just talking with someone who said we can have this room if we want it probably, so I don't know whether it would be easier to just stay consistent
Yeah.
if we're not using their computers. So,
Hopefully get this
Okay.
projector stuff worked out as well.
yes, that'll be the next issue.
Anyway, I think that's the end of our.
I think that's the end of our presentation. So,
Anybody want to drive some robots?
yes, would you like to drive some robots? I know you do. Yeah, of course.
Looks like we still need some batteries, and we also probably need an Allen key for one of the wheels.
I already fixed the Omni wheel robot.
I was talking about this one. That,
Oh wow, they're all falling
They're
out.
all falling apart.
Well, the Omni wheel robot is good to go because I programmed it while you were there.
no. Mine's in my laptop
So,
bag.
Guys, that was great.
Try
Thanks.
to drive it.
and if you guys ever have any questions, you can email me. You can email First BC. I don't know, maybe.
If you have any trouble finding them, send it to me and I will happily direct it to the alumni group.
Yes.
Yeah.
We do this, goes
We have a
with this
collection of
one.
alumni here.
There's lots of alumni still in Victoria, and some in Vancouver, some.
Technically it's a Logitech controller, but yeah.
And
these are what-
if you
it's
have
pretty
questions
similar, that's
and we're not
basically
available,
used
like
for
any of us,
Alright.
there's also the forums, and they're a really good resource. Like you can learn tons from just people asking questions, because
This one is
the
working.
reps from other league meets also are on there, and so they'll answer questions. And if you have a question, you can ask it like directly on there. So it's also very helpful. That's how we learned how to add wiring for lights to our robot master. Because it seems simple, but lighting is really hard to do. And
left and right, forward, back, this,
there's lots of
this,
regulations and
this.
stuff. So.
No, all I know was like the one package.
It's not super well programmed. It doesn't have limit checking on the magnitude of the motor power, so it might have troubles going on some
And
strange
there's
angles.
pizza at the back, if anybody would like some
I like
pizza.
the one I
Oh, it
programmed.
stopped.
Okay,
Yeah,
I
it
guess
stopped.
I won't set
It
up
does
the
that.
cam drive robot, but I'll go.
You have no idea how many times that's happened to me while I was trying to program.
Okay. St. Margaret's, I'm sorry, we don't have pizza for you.
All I really did was just
I'd send you
turn
pizza
off
if
the
you
battery
really
and turn
wanted,
it back
but,
on,
like,
and it seemed to work. So
I don't think it would work, so
there we
yeah.
go.
Is there Allen?
Bye. I'm gonna hang up on y'all now. Boop, 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 boop.